Good morning, and thank you so much for waking up with us here on Live Now from Fox. I'm Jeanne Francine, waking up with you this morning bright and early. It is Tuesday morning, June 25th, and as we come on the air here on Live Now from Fox, we are following a breaking news alert as it relates to the Israel-Hamas war. Content partners over at Al Jazeera reporting aid workers are among 24 people killed during a recent Israeli attack on Khan Yunis. We're told those aid workers included guards who were protecting an aid truck. Joining us live this morning to further break down this news alert is Dr. Kanta Ahmed, Independent Women's Forum Senior Fellow. Good morning to you, Dr. Kanta. Always a pleasure.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me, Jeanne.
Glad to have you as well. A lot to break down in regards to the conflict in the Middle East. We have the humanitarian crisis. We have this breaking news alert as it relates to the aid workers, even news on the fronts with Hezbollah as well.
Yes, I mean, this is still a very active conflict. And what you're describing, this attack, is a tragedy, but it also is the nexus of so much that's been difficult, enabling aid to get into the area. There is millions of tons of aid waiting to get into the area when the crossings are open. And there's very little ability to safeguard that aid from Hamas operatives. Only as recently as within the last week, we know that 47 trucks in a row were looted after they entered the zone. And so I don't know about this incident that you're mentioning, what exactly happened, but we know that aid attracts Hamas combatants and results in this kind of fire, and innocent lives are lost. We had the tragedy earlier on this spring of the death of Jose Andres, the founder of World Central Kitchen, and his 7 colleagues. So these tragedies, unfortunately, are heartbreaking. But until the region is free of Hamas operatives, we're not going to see that necessarily go away. And what we are seeing is, while we know the Prime Minister himself, Netanyahu, has said that the conflict is now eventually coming to an end, there have, in fact, I believe, been almost 22 Hamas brigades eliminated. Any remnants of Hamas were essentially guerrilla elements with limited supplies of weapons. In the north, we're seeing much more troublesome developments and much more extreme speech from the leader of Hezbollah, Nasrallah, who said there'll be no ceiling on the conflict that Hezbollah plans to open up on Israel.
And that's the thing people are concerned about. We know there has been fighting between Israel and Hezbollah for some time now, but many people looking ahead to see if that declaration of war will actually happen. So great point you're making there, Dr. Kanta. You were mentioning Hamas as it relates to aid. If we look back in recent days, we know the IDF announced to pause that daytime fighting so they could help with humanitarian aid getting through. As we know, Hamas has that tunnel network where they have had hostages going through that they took back on October 7th. Also knowing they have taken aid themselves for their terroristic organization. As we discuss Hamas, a lot of people looking and wanting to know if they have in fact relocated.
So everything that you're saying is correct. In fact, Hamas, the terrorist fighters, many of them are still going to be inside that labyrinth. Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas, is inside that labyrinth. Some of the belief is that he's surrounded by a phalanx of innocent hostages. He uses them as the human shield. If indeed some of the hostages remain alive, I pray that they do. Also, it's worth mentioning that Hamas has been instrumental in obstructing aid. Hamas struck the crossing into Kerem Shalom, and it caused a severe drop in access to aid for innocent people, as did Egypt, when in Egypt, in February, augmented its border with Rafah. So there are many elements to this, but I was I don't know how to describe it, intrigued, dismayed, horrified to see that Hamas is actually being moved from Qatar to Baghdad, Iraq. And that's actually been approved by the Iraqi government. And I think that is an incredible setback for the north of Iraq, the Kurdish people, who are led by President Nechivan Barzani. The Kurds, remember, are some of the most staunch American allies. And in fact, the Kurds and the Sunnis have shown great objection to the officials of Hamas being moved from Qatar and the US pressure to Baghdad. If there is a silver lining, some are saying that perhaps Hamas will be more vulnerable in Iraq than if they had gone back to Iran, which is the parent of them as a proxy. But of course, they will be under Iranian protection in Baghdad. And Baghdad has become almost a Western province of Iran, as people in that region would say. If there's one thing to note, and that is that the leader of Kurdistan, the president, Nurchivan Barzani, is possibly one of the only neutral figures in the area with good relations with Iran, good relations with Iraq, good relations with Turkey, no direct interest in this conflict, who could be a key negotiator and a key peace builder, and he has very good relations with the United States. So we'll wait to see, but it looks like the executive leaders of Hamas get a free pass and get to live in Baghdad.
Very interesting. And I'm wondering, as you were saying that, discussing, being neutral, at one point Egypt was saying they were neutral. And now there are some concerns if they actually were in fact neutral. As we know that Kerem Shalom crossing, they were telling certain people they couldn't cross to, seek refuge from the Israel-Hamas war. Then there were concerns about humanitarian aid entering. So how does Egypt play a role in all of this? You're mentioning all of these different entities in the Middle East, and it just makes me wonder if a regional conflict, some would say it's already happening, but if one would, flame up even more.
So it's important to say Egypt is a treaty partner with Israel and has upheld that partnership since it signed peace under Anwar Sadat and Jimmy Carter. So that's very important. But it is clear this conflict has exposed hundreds of tunnels going from Egypt in the Sinai into Gaza. And we know that there is a black market smuggling industry associated with that. We know that people who've come out of Gaza through somehow through these labyrinthine tunnels have been paying thousands of dollars, even for babies. And it's not to impugn all of Egypt. Egyptians are almost 100 million in population, but there is an element that is clearly financially benefiting from this and are invested in this. And that may also be a reason why this conflict is giving pause to actors like Egypt in the region. It's a very terrible conflict, which has exposed many conflicts of national interest across borders. Coming back to neutrality, I have been to Iraqi Kurdistan 3 times. I've met with the Peshmerga that fought ISIS. This is a dedicated community that has had deep affinity for the United States since President George H.W. Bush created a no-fly zone in that area to preserve the Kurdish people from genocide by Saddam. And so at a time when the United States is trying to do everything to deconflict, to prevent a war between Iran via Hezbollah on Israel, to prevent deepening the conflict with established partners in the region, it may be imperative for American diplomats to really engage Iraqi Kurdistan to try and lower the temperature. And I think the whole world needs that.
I love how you put that, lowering the temperature, because we've already seen remnants of the conflict in the Middle East already trickling over here to the U.S. When you look at those protests that have erupted, some even getting violent on those college campuses and universities. So great points you're making there. Dr. Kanta, always a pleasure having you here on Live Now. Your perspective, your expertise, your dialogue, always appreciated. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we let you go? Anything we need to be keeping a watchful eye for?
Gina, you just mentioned something very important, and that is exactly the spillover of these conflicts here into the United States. There was a very important article in the New York Times yesterday talking about the incredible hostilities that have spilled into the University of San Francisco in Northern California. My own medical professionals have formed a group, the American Medical Jewish Association, because of the anti-Semitism and the discrimination Jewish doctors and Jewish residents and students are facing. This is unacceptable. And as the United States, which values all minorities and gives everybody a means of freedom of expression, we do still need to protect the minorities in our own country. That's everybody's responsibility. So yes, it's very important the region cool down, and it's very important the United States remember its true values that we must uphold as individuals. That's not somebody in Washington. That's our own actions that are responsible for making sure the United States remains a tolerant and truly inclusive, pluralist place.
Dr. Kanta, truly a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us again this Tuesday morning. You enjoy the rest of your day.
Pleasure.